All right, welcome on in. We are starting our first ever Socratic Sunday stream. The goal here is to do effectively a just chatting stream, but prioritize getting other voices in. I'm happy to talk to people, obviously, and express my views, but my goal is to get multiple sort of perspectives in here. So we shall see if people are looking to join. Okay. And I'm in the Discord call here. I'm just making sure that it's coming into my headphones if anybody joins. May take a moment. My hope is to start off discussing some news. I will admit my Associated Press news on ground news is weirdly sports heavy, so I'm gonna probably skip that and look at again, like a weird amount of sports when I go to Europe. Major rescue in Blackpool after person swept to sea and crew thrown overboard. Jesus. The Coast Guards who went to rescue the guy were also injured. That's one of those things where very frequently you'll see rescuers get pissed off at people who do dumb shit like going to Death Valley, without any gear and like no water, because it does put the rescuers at risk, needlessly. Like, it's one of those things where like any rescuer is happy to go into a situation with like a natural disaster or whatever. They're happy to do that, but when it's your own stupidity that's then putting the rescuers at risk, it is often not well regarded. Texas flooding update. 2 girls rescued alive while hanging onto a tree. That's excellent, because I know that... here's right the next one. Texas disaster balance has increased to 68 deaths. 11 girls from Future Camp are still being searched from. Jesus. I mean, fucking horrifying. Tropical storm Chantal makes landfall in South Carolina. Yeah, I was seeing that was a thing. Also in Guadalupe. Or no, that's the same flooding in Guadalupe. Let's see. Musk should stay out of politics, U.S. Treasury Secretary Bessent says. You know, where were you in fucking November saying that shit? Funny how that works. Space. You know, my grandfather died this past week, and he was a NASA engineer, worked on things like the Hubble telescope, the Tomahawk missile system, and even the James Webb telescope. So I want space news in honor of him. Okay, I'm not clear on how this is space news, but fig trees may benefit climate by turning carbon dioxide into stone. That's fascinating. James Webb Telescope catches stray galaxies in the Bullet Cluster. I'm not clear on why it's the Bullet Cluster. The picture is beautiful, but I also know that, like, all of those pictures are colorized, which does take away the magic a little bit. Which isn't to say they're all bad, but, like, let's see. Any further... Okay, is that news? Astronomers watch unusual object. Yeah, pretty much all the time. I'm not clear on how this became space news. Devour a cosmic-sized chunk of Marvel lore ahead of the Fantastic Four first steps with the Coming of Galactus novel. I think that the AI picked up on the word cosmic and went no further. Golden Handle will appear on the moon tonight. Here's how to see it. Gain-assisted superluminal light propagation. Oh. Haven't we proved that it's possible to go faster than the speed of light? Because there was that study of the guy who was, like, sending himself messages from the future by accelerating a laser. I could be wrong, but I remember reading about that probably 10 years ago. Should we panic about Interstellar Comet 31 or 3I-Atlas? I'm inclined to say probably not. Let's do just offbeat. Anything interesting? Man is injured in a struggle with an escaped lion in southern Turkey. You know, the word injured being in that statement rather than killed, I'm gonna say the guy did well. I'm not sure how that's offbeat, but thousands of voices unite in song at traditional choir festival celebrating Estonia's culture. I mean, cool. No objections. But, not entirely offbeat. Oh, shit. Okay, what else do we have? If it were not for him, we would have died. Dog saves owners during Russian drone attack. I mean, cool. Way to go, Ukrainian dog. I would definitely rather read about Ukrainian dog than Florida man. Hong Kongers scrap Japan trips over comic books earthquake prophecy. Okay. Sure. Why not? Okay, the offbeat wasn't all that interesting. LGBT plus news. Anything interesting? Shocking. Nigel Farage says it was, quote, wrong to introduce marriage equality. Quote, I didn't support it. What a fucking dickhead. Like, Everybody thought that after the whole Brexit thing, but what a fucking dickhead. Da, 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 da. Okay. That's interesting. Pope Leo the 14th. Pilgrimages are, quote, vital for a Christian's life of faith. I'm under LGBTQ+. I'm really not clear how this got here. Who knows? Let's see. I am aware that in the future I will need some form of sort of background music that's not copyrighted. I know Harris Heller does stream beats, but I don't know of other ones. Zoran Mamdani faces criticism over video posted during Hanukkah. I feel like this is bullshit, but I could be wrong. Oh, he shared a comedy video. Jesus. I don't want to say that the people accusing him of anti-Semitism are extremely unserious, but they certainly seem to be. Not as bad as Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is introducing a, quote, weather modification bill. Jesus, that's... Also, the conspiracy theories behind that are almost invariably anti-Semitic. There are exceptions when it comes to conspiracy theories, but almost all of them come back to anti-Semitism at some level. Like, to a weird degree. Okay, that is most of what I'm probably going to look at on ground news. Do we have anything on the news subreddit? I'm sure some of it'll be the same, but... Oh, I did see this. Archaeologists unveil 3,500-year-old city in Peru. Now, I've got an old professor who studies in Peru, but he studies primarily the Moche culture, which came far after this. So I would be very interested to know what the culture was. But, it's very interesting. Oh, I saw this. Turkey says 5 soldiers killed by methane gas during cave search in northern Iraq, which, as I understand, came after Turkey violated Iraqi sovereignty by putting its soldiers there without permission, and then sent more in to rescue them. Oh, this one is an international clusterfuck. Crew abandons Liberian-flagged Greek owned ship attacked in the Red Sea off the coast of Yemen, according to the UK military. That is too many sovereign powers. Oh, the Dalai Lama turned 90, which is one of those things that, like, is kind of bittersweet. I have a grandfather who just died at 89, so didn't make it to 90, but it's... I mean, shit, he was old, he was sharp, and he went quick. May we all be so lucky. But the Dalai Lama thing is very much a bittersweet thing, because China has already said that they're going to choose their own Dalai Lama, basically to cut back on Tibet's geopolitical power, and they've already maybe kidnapped the Panchen Lama. It's a little unclear. We haven't seen him in a while. And I'm pretty sure they did choose their own Panchen Lama. So... I mean, congrats to him for making 90, I suppose. Let's see. Tennessee man pardoned for January 6th offenses gets life in prison in separate case accusing him of trying to incite, quote, civil war. A second time? Like, insurrection me once. Whatever. Created a kill list of FBI agents. Yeah, that's not a good look. Oh, specifically the ones that investigated him. Yeah. I saw this. Aquarium creates senior sanctuary for aging penguins. Sure. Where was that? I read it, but I didn't hang on to that information. Boston. Boston Aquarium. Let's see. China's first Legoland resort packed on opening day despite heatwave. I mean, yeah, it's fucking Legoland. People get unreasonably worked up about that. I'm not blaming them. I get unreasonably worked up about some shit, but... Opening Legoland is like opening fucking Disney. Except the adults might actually be weirder. Cape Verde celebrates 50 years independence. That's cool. Czech Republic hit by major power outage triggered by fallen cable. You know what? I can't talk shit. My house lost power for 22 hours from, like, a tree falling over. It was not great. Oh yeah, it caused a cascade effect because they haven't been maintaining their infrastructure. Why does that sound familiar? Democratic lawmakers denied entry into Alligator Auschwitz immigration detention site. Yeah, a lot more of the flooding stuff. I am now going to check the Anime Titties subreddit, which, for those who don't know, was a Splinter subreddit, when I don't remember if it was news or world news, had a story about anime titties. So it's one of the best sources for international news on Reddit, but you do in fact have to click on a subreddit called anime titties. It's one of those things that, like, if your workplace monitors your where you go on your computer, you might want to wait till you're at home. EU wants to decrypt your private data by 2030. That will be interesting, given that the EU has also passed the, like, right to be forgotten laws. Which, like, obviously they could reverse, but it would be a whole thing. Turkey arrests one of Sweden's most wanted suspected gang leaders. He's allegedly a gang leader. Got it. Afghan refugees stuck in Pakistan as Germany halts entry program with an E at the end of the word, so presumably that was written by an English person. Possibly an Australian? Not sure. Yeah. That sucks. I don't have, like, a funny thing to say about that. That's just terrible. Let's see. Constitutional Court rules against Polish government's cut to religious teachings in schools. So they're saying that they do need to pay money to teach religion, if that's what I'm reading. That's interesting. Brazil's Supreme Court makes social media directly liable for illegal content, which is the opposite of the direction that the US went back in the 90s. We have the DMCA, or Digital Millennium Copyright Act. It was 90s or early 2000s. It was, like, on the millennium, I think. I think it was 2000, but it might have been the late 90s they were coming up with it. Anyway, basically, what the DMCA does, besides get your videos taken down, is allow a copyright holder or a platform to moderate itself in such a way that... So the way DMCA is handled, I think, is broadly bad. Just because you are effectively guilty until proven innocent. So if I'd say Sony is like, hey, you got music that we own in your video, we're going to give you a copyright strike or take down the video. YouTube is not obliged to investigate that. They can just say, okay, you have this strike if you don't take the video down. We're just going to believe whoever's accusing you. That is the major negative aspect of the Digital Millennium Copyright Act in our day-to-day lives. The major positive effect is that, effectively, as long as a platform can say it made, like, a reasonable effort to moderate itself, it can't be held personally liable, or like, the company can't be held liable for anything that users post. Because there was a question back in the 90s of, like, if you run a chat room, because chat rooms were very popular at the time, and someone uploads, say, child porn to that chat room, there was the question of, like, is the person who runs the chat room then guilty for hosting that material, or is it exclusively an issue of the person who uploaded it, and as long as you can say, like, as soon as I saw it, I took it down, then you're good to go. And it sounds like Brazil's going in the opposite direction. Probably related to what Musk has been doing with Twitter. But it was one of those moments where, like, the internet kind of stayed freer than it might have been otherwise. And, like, there are a lot of pain in the ass things that come with the DMCA, but the fact that art is not, like, just summarily rejected from most platforms is largely due to that. Just because if it was someone wanted to argue, like, it's illegal to draw this image, and there was any chance of the publisher being held liable for that, or not the publisher, the platform rather, being held liable for that, it just, you wouldn't be allowed to post art on any website that's not your own. So there's definitely positives and negatives to that particular act, but broadly I think it worked out in our favor. And the problems that come with it are largely a question of opportunistic people trying to take advantage of it, or lazy companies like Alphabet, Google, YouTube, whatever, who choose not to investigate prior to just shutting it down, doing the, guilty before proven innocent thing. Egypt says Ethiopia's completed power generating dam lacks a legally binding agreement. This is going to get worse and worse. This is one of the water wars things that's coming up. So as time goes on, water will become, fresh water particularly, will become more and more difficult to get your hands on, particularly closer to the equator. Due to climate change, and there will be massive diasporas, there will be significant social upheaval, and there will be a shortage of water. And dams have always sort of come with that, but as that scarcity gets worse and worse, it's going to start actual wars. And Nestle is going to make it worse, for the record. I'm not clear on how, but they always do when it comes to water. Russia ramps up use of banned chemical weapons in Ukraine, including World War I era poison gas, which is fucking horrifying, though is it still good? I don't know what the shelf life is on mustard gas or chlorine gas. I assume it's fine, but like... anything else? Those are kind of the primary things, and nobody has hopped in to join me, sadly. I am happy to sit and talk about various other things, though I may just like yap about The Expanse for a while. I am looking to do a podcast with a couple friends of mine, where I'm introducing them to various things, and we will discuss it on a podcast. It'll be like TV and movies that they haven't seen, because they're younger than I am and grew up in an era with the internet where they just weren't into movies as much because they were on Tumblr or whatever at the time, that they could have been, watching all these famous movies and shows. So it will be interesting. We just watched the movie Sinners last night, which was fucking great. Highly recommend it if you've got HBO. There's also We're working our way through The Expanse. We just got through episode 5 with them last night. So the podcast that we do, hopefully this coming Saturday, assuming nothing goes wrong, will cover that movie and the first 5 episodes of The Expanse. Our goal is to start getting React videos up. We just have some logistical hurdles. My friends are building themselves VTuber models, and I'm probably going to be a flesh tuber on those reactions, at least initially. They were talking about building me a VTuber model, which I don't object to, but it would be faster if we get theirs up and running and then just do video of me for now. But yeah, Sinners, really good movie. Some definite Dusk Till Dawn vibes with some other stuff interspersed in there. A really excellent period piece for all of its various supernatural elements. Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that is all the news I have to cover. I'm sure that there's... Oh, here, I can talk more about The Expanse. The new trailer for The Expanse game, Osiris Reborn, looks fucking amazing. It's Mass Effect, but in The Expanse. I'm sold. Huge fan of both the show and the books. I'm currently working my way through book 5 of The Expanse. I read 200 pages of that at work today, because it got slow after it got hot. But let's see, was there anything else I wanted to talk about going on? Oh, I just discovered, and my grandmother didn't even know this, in my grandfather's closet, he had his father's microscope and sextant from the 1920s, and my great-grandfather was a merchant marine, so he probably actually used both. Gorgeous, like, brass construction. There's basically no chance I get it because I have 2 uncles who are in line first. And I said I'm happy for them to get it. But if they don't want to, give it to me because it's so fucking cool. But yeah, that was funny to pull that out and have my grandmother go, yeah, I didn't know this was in here. Okay. Do I have anything else I wish to discuss broadly? Besides my continuing search for a fucking job. All manner of things going on with that, but it's slow, which isn't shocking. I just wish it was quicker. Let's see. Being perfectly honest, I will tell you I'm pretty fucking tired. I woke up at 2 p.m. yesterday. And that was after 19 hours of sleep. Turns out grieving for a couple of days, followed by missing midnight medication and morning coffee, putting me into multiple levels of withdrawal. Wasn't great. But I've been awake since then, barring maybe 30 minutes of like a nap this morning. So I am extraordinarily tired. My goal with this stream was to, talk to people, have people hop in the Discord, have people hop in the chat. But I admit, hasn't been terribly successful. I did have some friends that were going to join us, but one of them has a dog that is sick. They're having a vet over, so I said, absolutely no worries. Make sure your dog's fine. But it does mean that I'm going to sit here yapping on my own until someone joins. Or I, give up or pass out. I'm probably not going to pass out because I did that on Friday, and that was frankly embarrassing. That was right before I passed out for 19 hours. But I started, and I was like, alright, I'd like to go for at least 3 hours. And I started, like, dozing at 30 minutes, and I was like, alright, I can make 3 hours. And I hit 45 minutes, and I was like, I can probably make 2 hours. And I hit an hour, and I was like, an hour and a half would be fucking sweet. And I made an hour and a half, so that was pushing it by that point, frankly. Speaking of the expense, I'm going to pick up the Telltale game here, because it's on sale 60% off, including the bundle, so yeah. I'm going to pick that up and probably play it on stream. For under $12, done. Okay. Oh, they're doing a summer sale thing. God, I would love to play Hogwarts Legacy, but I cannot in good conscience spend that money, knowing that even a few cents might make their way to J.K. Rowling. I just... yeah, okay, I have a trans sister. But even if I didn't... she's just such a horrific fucking person. And it was really sad to watch the decline, right? Because, 2019, she said a thing that was kind of anti-trans. Pretty clearly anti-trans, but not, kill the trans people. It wasn't at that level, right? But since then, she basically got offended when everyone was like, hey, that's a shitty thing to say about people. Don't do that. And, of course... a bunch of fucking fascists latched on and were like, no, you're right, and, comforted her, and she has slid into full-on fascism, hanging out with, people who call themselves Nazis in the past 5 years, and I'm like, I will not be supporting J.K. Rowling with my money ever again. I don't pirate things, I don't put that effort in, I don't bother with that, but if I ever were to play Hogwarts Legacy, I would have to pirate it, because I will not give her money. I refuse, thank you very much. Black Mesa's $2 right now. Crafton publisher sale? I don't think I know Crafton. Oh, Enjoy is in there, which I know a lot of VTubers were like, I can make just me and then make it talk like me, which made a lot of people happy. Oh, look, the Callisto Protocol's on sale for $9. Still too much money. Do I need to be browsing the Steam sale during my stream? Probably not, but I'm just yapping. And the goal is to have people join me and yap with me, so... for the moment, you get my yapping. I have heard very good things about the altars. Yahtzee Croshaw was very impressed, which is rare. But also several other people that I've seen have strongly recommended it. But haven't gotten around to looking. You know how it goes, the backlog is always longer than you want it to be. Okay. I got my one thing. I don't think I need to spend money on another thing. Repo is marginally cheaper. It's 20% off. It's $8 instead of 10. But I currently don't have anyone to play with, so like I play games with my dad a lot, but that is so not a game for my dad. Let's see. 10 Bells was supposed to be good. It's 30% off at the moment. Last Epoch, is an ARPG that I've been meaning to like check out, and it is on sale, but it's still $28, which is more than I'd like to pay for it. Sulaco is one of those like boomer shooter FPSs that I would actually be very interested in checking out, but because it's still in early access, I haven't pulled the trigger on it. No pun intended. Ready or Not, I would like to play, and it's 50% off, but that's still $25, and I can't justify that given the amount of backlog I have. Let's see. I can continue yapping for quite a long time, should I need to. All by myself. I will not continue that song, by the way. I cannot hit notes like Celine. Oh, that's cool. My Xbox is not connected to the network. That seems unhelpful. Is that the network being down? Checking service status. All services are available. Okay, now it's working. Cool. I always feel like I can't totally bitch about it when it starts working, because it's working. Like, even if it took a second. Okay. No, I'm good. My wish list. Anything interesting? The Prince of Persia 2D platformer was supposed to be really good, and it's currently on sale. Frostpunk I will play at some point, and I have not gotten around to that. Let's see. How about upcoming Game Pass? I will just talk about that, because Mecha Break. I've heard of Mecha Break. Is that the one that everyone's, like, giving the characters a fat ass? I feel like I saw a clip of, like, Zentrea doing that. Or just admiring it. Like, maybe it wasn't a character creation thing, but... let's see. Coming to Game Pass, The Ascent, which was once on Game Pass. But I also remember, like, looking at it and not being interested enough to try it the last time, so probably... Oh, yeah, it's like a top-down twin-stick shooter, which are not my jam generally. Not because they're bad, but because I'm bad at them. Tony Hawk Pro Skater, also not my jam, but I'm glad people are super psyched for that. High on Life, which, I mean, okay. As far as I can tell from the news, Justin Roiland's not a great dude, so that does kind of put a damper on it. That said, I did see some gameplay and it looked kind of funny, so I don't know. Let's see. Gears of War Reloaded, Outer Worlds 2. I don't have, like, a strong feeling on Outer Worlds 2. I played the first one. It was fine. I wouldn't object to trying a second one, but I also kind of don't care. I would like to finish up Stalker 2 soonish, just so I'm playing something different. Ideally something newer. Just because I know that by picking Outer Worlds 2, I didn't catch it in the zeitgeist. I'm from the US? Yes, I am. East Coast, specifically. Welcome on in, Pepper Sheet. We were discussing news earlier. I've shifted to games. Did you have any topics you'd be interested in talking about? From Belgium. Vlaanderen. Okay. Welcome on in. So many topics at the moment? Yeah, you're not wrong. Nah, not Vlaanderen? Okay. Tut mir sehr leid, ich spreche ein bisschen Deutsch. And to be perfectly honest, my grasp of geography is not the finest you'll ever find. Though it is better than I thought it was when I was a kid, because I was comparing it to my best friend, who is one of the best people I've ever met when it comes to geography. Guy went and got a degree in, like, GIS doing mapping. Little bit of Netherlands, but speak French. Ich spreche ein bisschen Deutsch und говорю немного по-русски. But, I avoided French, because I personally found that it was somewhat pointless to write down an entire language and then only pronounce half of it. US people do suck at geography. That said, I bet if I put a map of the United States and asked you to name the 50 states, you might have a little trouble. Now, granted, so would some people from the US, but that's a whole other thing. Not Dutch. I speak German. Bit of German. Which means I speak a little bit of Dutch and a little bit of Afrikaans, but only know where Yellowstone is. You know, honestly, if you had to pick, like, a place to go check out in the United States, Yellowstone's a damn good pick. That or Hawaii. I've been to Yellowstone once, and it was absolutely worth it. Phenomenal trip. No, you're lying? You don't know where Yellowstone is? It's in the northeast? Nope, I'm afraid not. It is in the northwest. Wyoming, I believe. Yeah, it was, in fact, our first national park, back as far as 1872. Yeah, it is within the borders of Wyoming. That was pretty sure, but I did have to go double check. Why is the Coliseum in front? That is not, in fact, the Coliseum. So that is the Agora, the amphitheater in Athens. The Odeon Amphitheater. Hey, if we've established anything, it's that geography's hard. But yes, in doing a Socratic stream, I decided the Greek amphitheater was sort of an appropriate background. In school, they ask us to know all the European countries and capitals. We did much the same in the United States, where we had to know all 50 states and their capitals, and we learned it through a song that I could probably get to if I dug deep enough in my brain. But yeah, I've also forgotten a lot of them. And also, to be fair, uh, asking you to learn the countries, particularly in like Eastern Europe, where they change kind of regularly, is just a pain. Like, are you old enough to have studied it when it was Czechoslovakia? Before it became the Czech Republic and Slovakia? And then the Czech Republic became Czechia? 25. Okay, so you'd have been on the young end for Czechoslovakia. I'm 30, so I sort of watched that happen. But honestly, I mean, I have the same problem with African geography, where like stuff just changes enough that I'm like, I have no idea. And keeping track of who's mad at who is a whole other thing. It's a big continent. Yeah, it absolutely is. And Northern Africa is pretty stable as far as like what countries are where you've got like Tunisia, Egypt, Morocco, all pretty stable. But Sub-Saharan Africa is sort of a geopolitical clusterfuck. So I mean, there was a whole thing going on in Nigeria earlier this year, with like Russian-backed troops. Like, I don't know. And figuring out what's going on there geopolitically is a whole other question, because China's been doing an incredible job of basically economic colonialism, where they'll come in and be like, hey, we're going to hire your people to build this road and hospital. We'll give you the money for it to make this thing that will improve your community. Just give us good access to the mineral rights over here. And, of course, the people living in poverty without a hospital or good roads totally take that. Let's see. In Europe, some people know a lot of African geography because of mixity, but it's a little complicated. They get their own African Union with Parliament and all that. Yeah. I mean, God, how the UN handles political power shifts, I have no idea. Not that the UN's much use generally to a lot of those countries, but it does at least give them a voice, even if it's not one that's heard much. You know the situation with Burkina Faso and the new leader? I heard something about that. Let me look that up real quick so that I'm not speaking super ignorantly. So let's see. Recent news from Burkina Faso includes reports of government-allied militias linked to a massacre in Solenzo, with extensive video footage showing dozens killed. The country, along with Mali and Niger, has also withdrawn from the West African National Bloc, ECOWAS, ending citizens' access to the regional court. Additionally, Burkina Faso is reportedly planning to reinstate the death penalty, a move condemned by human rights organizations. And, of course, they had the military coup. Burkina Faso military accused of killing over 100 civilians in a massacre, jihadist attacks, and that was specifically the 12th of May, so like 2 months ago, give or take. So yeah, military coup, which is unfortunately common in a lot of those countries. Ibrahim Traore? I'm not even gonna pretend that I know how to pronounce that name. But yeah, looks like military coup led by theocratic extremists, which just never ends well. Doesn't start well either, but, you know. Yeah, I had heard that something happened in Burkina Faso, but I had not dug deep enough to know all of that. Okay. I was just checking Nigeria because I knew that a lot had gone down, but most of that was last year, so it's not much news. Don't want You don't want to think about Ibrahim Traore, or you don't know what to think about? I think you missed a word, and it changes the meaning of the sentence. Sorry. Don't feel bad. You're better at English than I am at Russian or German. So, taking a lot of big decisions, but a lot of misinformation from him. Okay, I mean, people who do military coups are often big on spreading misinformation. Hey, no, again, yours is better than either of my foreign languages that I speak a bit of, so no worries. Canceled the English courses when you were in school? Oh, that's unfortunate. That was when I went to college. I was planning on. I have a background, a medical background. You learned English with How I Met Your Mother? Legendary, I suppose. Um, but when I was going to college, my plan was to take Latin just because I have a medical background. I worked as an EMT and previously with the National Ski Patrol, so I had a good base in Latin root words, but they didn't offer it commonly at my college, and without looking for any further information, I was like, oh, I'll do Russian, not knowing that it was one of the most grammatically complex languages on the planet. Wow, it's a nice school. Uh, My college was pretty nice, yeah. I mean, it's not Ivy League or anything, but I went to a local community college that had a program to then go to George Mason University, assuming your grades were high enough, which mine were, which saved me a lot of money going to community college first. And frankly, I went to Nova, which is pretty much the best community college in the country, which was very convenient since it also happened to be 20 minutes from my house. Well, the campus that I went to primarily, there were a couple that were further, but I did have to take a math class at one of the further out ones. Yeah, I took German in high school, Russian in college, and then I've kept up with Russian via Duolingo, which is not helpful for grammar study, but is helpful for vocabulary, just reinforcing the vocabulary. So I'm on like a 4-year Duolingo streak or something. I think tomorrow is day 1750. Yeah, it's not. It's a pretty complex language. The primary issue being the number of declensions that exist within it. Uh, do I hear protests where I am? Well, I am, give or take 45 minutes outside of DC. So there are a lot of protests. I'm not hearing them like outside my windows. Um, but there are a whole lot of them going on in my area. I should honestly probably be in some of them. But, yeah, it definitely is. Um, and what makes it worse is that my countrymen didn't learn from the first time. Like, I could forgive them for electing Donald Trump once. The second time, not so much. Once he had proved that he was all of the awful things that he said he was. Did I watch Civil War? I have not. Um, it's, but what I've heard of it, at the very least, it's not about an actual civil war along current political U.S. lines. In that Texas and California, who, like, as states go, they fucking hate each other, team up to go into a civil war with the rest of the Union. And what it's actually about is how Civil War tears apart people and the value of journalism in that sort of environment. That said, I've heard that from reviewers. I've not watched the movie myself, so. Follow a war photographer. Hey, war photographers are incredibly valuable. Um, their history dates back, in my country at least, to the U.S. Civil War in the 1860s. And that was part of what reduced support for the Civil War, is there were pictures coming in that people could see the horrors of war on, like, daguerreotypes and ivanotypes. And then we had a couple of filmed wars in World War I and World War II where people were on the ground filming and then they could ship that film over. But it wasn't real time until Vietnam in the 1970s, when someone could be recording in Vietnam and then have that footage on the nightly news. And what we're watching in Ukraine, where Russia's invading, is basically the first live-streamed war. where people are going on the internet live as they're in combat, which is wild to me. But at some level, it was also proof in the early days that Russia was doing what it said it was not doing, where all of the Ukrainian drones had like footage as proof that Russian helicopters and tanks were rolling into Ukraine in, what was it, February 2022? The last couple of days of February, and then March, early March was the bulk of it. Really like to check the archive, but it's different. We see usually other people and dictators dying, but it's different when it's a film or real footage of white people or West Bloc society. Oh, Western Bloc, like post World War II Western Bloc. Yeah, don't get me wrong, I'm not someone who sits and watches combat footage regularly. I don't find that edifying. It is occasionally, intellectually interesting. West Block never died like the East Block. Yeah, you're not wrong. The West Block did sort of just turn into its own thing, and at some level absorbed a chunk of the East Block. Create ourselves the bricks. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE. Okay. Yeah, I've read a bit about bricks, but I don't know a ton on it. Yeah, for anybody watching who doesn't know what we're talking about, just for reference, I'm gonna drop it in the chat. Yeah, they're trying to create a new currency based on gold, which is not the worst idea in the world, but it's also kind of limited. Um, just because gold is not as innately valuable as I think it needs to be in order to back a currency. Gold is one of those things that's valuable because we all agree it's valuable. Whereas if you back it with something like petroleum, you then have like something that we all agree that we all need for plastics, for fuel, for whatever. that is valuable in like a survival scenario. Gold is just a shiny rock. Now, it is conductive. So unlike the old shiny rock thing, where it was just a shiny rock through most of human history, and an admittedly malleable one, because occasionally people like making jewelry with it because it was so easy to, like, mold. The only real value we have for gold is that it is useful in electronics at this point. I find the idea of a gold-backed currency to be sort of absurd, but at some level we also all agree that the little pieces of paper in our pockets hold value. And the only reason that works is because we all agree that they hold value. So, by and large, money is made up. Currency isn't, but money is made up. Personally, I think lost their liberty when they canceled the silver coin. Interesting. Was that Belgium specifically or the EU broadly? EU and the US? Okay. Paper money if you burnt it? Yeah, no, that's fair. You go to jail. Yes. That is true. Assuming you get caught, but yes. It does help that you can't burn metal generally. Like, you could if you really tried, but that is basically a way that the government in power ensures that their power continues. Oh, it means that it's not your money? Okay. That's an interesting thesis. And by and large, I sort of agree with where you're going. The idea that it is illegal to do a certain thing to, quote-unquote, your money. And I don't disagree with you. I think that's an interesting point. Where it can be your money, you can have earned it, but you are still not allowed to deface it in certain ways. Because allowing that would lead to either inflation or deflation, depending on how it went. But the government very specifically needs it to hold value, because if we stop agreeing that it holds value, the world goes to shit really quick. Which is why there are criminal penalties for destroying paper money. We did actually adjust our laws so that it was no longer illegal to, like, destroy pennies or whatever. And frankly, the pennies are so useless, we should have stopped making them years ago. It literally costs more to make a US penny than that penny is worth, by, like, a significant amount. I think Canada did well with that, where, like, they switched to the $1 and $2 coins, got rid of cents entirely, and their lowest bill is the $5 bill. That said, they call their $1 and $2 coins loonies and toonies, so that's true. In the past, if we melted a silver coin, was it a crime? Probably. I would presume that would have constituted a crime simply because you wouldn't want say, a group of thieves to make off with a rich merchant's coin bag, melt it all down, and then sell the silver just for its base cost, even though they would get less money, it then starts destroying your economic system if that becomes practical. In euro, 2 cent and 1 cent has more value in copper weight than the euro itself. That's interesting. We don't have a 2 cent coin. We have a 1, a 5, a 10, and a 25. Which is interesting because our dollars don't do that. We have a 1, a 5, a 10, and a 20. And then a 50 and a 100. Yeah, basically our money is... no. Hey, Industrat, I didn't die. My grandfather did. So I was at his wake and then funeral earlier this week. I apologize, I was not streaming. That means a lot of 1 cent sometime. Yeah, for sure. No, I meant to send a message on Wednesday and I was just busy all evening. It went well on the whole. Not, it was never going to be pleasant, but it went as well as it could have. Remembering Mr. Burns throwing 1 cent to people. Yeah, Mr. Burns is a disturbingly accurate villain. But yeah, by and large, I think U.S. quarters are worth making, but that's pretty much it. There's really no reason to have basically any other coin that we make. Oh, we were discussing currency, specifically bricks. If you scroll up in the chat, I dropped a Wikipedia link. But it is the... Actually, I can probably just drop the link again. It is the... It is a coalition of various governments that is trying to create a new currency with the backing of gold. And we were discussing how gold as a source of backing doesn't make a ton of sense. Like, it's valuable because we all agree it's valuable, but in a survival situation, you can't eat it, you can't fuck it, so, like, what good is it? And the answer in modernity is that, effectively, it's useful in small electronics as a conductor. But that's about it. So... I was saying, like, if you're gonna back your money with anything, I feel like petroleum's kind of the way to go. Good to talk to people in the USA, in Europe. There's a lot of USA hate because of what we see. Hey, frankly, 70% of my country either voted for Donald Trump or decided not to vote, and that either candidate was fine. It is pretty reasonable to hate my country for the bullshit that's going on right now. I voted for Harris, but hey, fair enough. Yeah, the protests and citizen action are what I'm trying to focus on. But yes, I was pretty fucking angry with my countrymen when they decided either to vote for the guy or to not care enough to vote against him. And I think a lot of it was a, like, it can't happen here fallacy. And, oh, you can't open the link on your phone. Google BRICS. People will make America good again. I fucking hope so. What we're seeing here, cyclically speaking, is a very similar thing to what happened in the 1920s going into the 1930s, where we had an isolationist president in the form of Wilson, then Hoover, who destroyed the fucking country. Similarly with tariffs, actually, the Smoot-Hawley tariffs that were passed into law in 1930, about 6 months after the Great Depression had started, making the Great Depression much, much worse. And then the country was so thoroughly destroyed that we needed a president like Franklin Delano Roosevelt, or FDR, who served 4 consecutive terms, and introduced things like jobs programs that got people working again, that helped to build the infrastructure that I think is truly incredible in the United States, that eventually led to building the federal highway system under Dwight D. Eisenhower, mostly in the 50s. And I think after Trump, we're going to need... Oh, there are a lot of people protesting the tariffs. You're just not seeing it on the news because the people who own media companies are billionaires, and it is... Oh, only seeing the migration ones. You know, a lot of those people are also opposed to tariffs, but they're trying to handle the humanitarian crisis before the economic crisis. So, I get it. There's a whole lot going on there. Alright, I'll do my best. Sorry, my sister says I'm getting a little loud. My apologies. But yes, as far as the no economic growth without social stability, I agree. By and large, I think step one is get the United States universal health care, and ideally start working on universal basic income. The thing that is wild to me, right, is like the whole idea that robots are coming to take our jobs, and that's a fucking problem. Like, how badly has capitalism harmed the human psyche that we can't just relax with our fucking robots doing all the work? Universal healthcare, the number one cause of bankruptcy in the United States is medical debt. Yeah, in most first world countries, it's just free. In many third world countries, it's also just free. Because people recognize that you need healthy citizens in order to have a productive country. That and the complete lack of social safety nets in the U.S., and they're dismantling, you know, Medicare, Medicaid, all that. We are currently living pretty much in 1930s Germany, and a lot of people are not willing to accept that. But I just praised FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, but he was also a president who illegally interned both Japanese and German Americans in concentration camps for the duration of World War II. My country has a lot of blood on its hands, frankly. So, I'm hoping that we get someone who can bring us back from this, but the US's time as the quote-unquote leader of the free world, which was always kind of blowing smoke up our own ass, has come to an end. Because the thing about US manufacturing is that it was such an incredible powerhouse in the 1950s because we were the only majorly industrialized country that hadn't just been bombed to shit. So all of our factories worked. How long till new elections? Presidential elections will be 2028. The midterm elections that will cover most, if not all, of the House and a third of the Senate will be 2026 November. Too long to answer your question. But it's going to be a very violent summer, unfortunately. There was a veteran who made a speech where he said people go to the army for free education, for healthcare, to get a job, and saying they need to fight people. To get people, poor people, healthcare and education instead of leaving them in the desert or caves. Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, it. Frankly, let me pull up Maslow's hierarchy of needs because I don't know if you're familiar with it. Um, so Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a pyramid, basically. And the idea is you have to fulfill every level of the pyramid to get to the next level above it. And the fact that the richest country on earth, which the US is, no worries about your English, the richest country in the world, which the US is, but just by currency, cannot fulfill the bottom portion of that pyramid for every one of its citizens is fucking disgraceful. And it's not that they can't do it, it's that they choose not to. So I'm disappointed in the state of my country. I mean, it's been in decline since Ronald Reagan in 1980 started busting up unions, and that was one of the other things FDR did, was support unions and improve labor rights. But yeah, I am invariably pissed off when I wake up and read the news that we're, giving more tax breaks to billionaires. People who literally couldn't spend all of the money they have in their lifetimes if they tried. So, like, the thing that they're getting is nothing. It means nothing to them. It's just a little number going up. It cannot, significantly affect their lives. Oh, thank you for the follow-up, Pepper Sheet. But the way that we're giving them those tax breaks is taking away some of the few social services we do have. We're cutting the suicide hotline for LGBT plus people. We are getting rid of Medicare and Medicaid. We are getting rid of grants, research grants for all of the colleges in our country. And all of this because people either believed that Donald Trump would be a good leader or believed that the outcome of the election would be irrelevant to them. 70% of the people in my country did one of those two things. In Belgium, the rich don't really pay taxes. It's a fiscal paradise like Switzerland. Yeah, Ireland kind of had that going for a while, too. It's the middle class who pay for Social Security and healthcare. But that's the thing, right? Does it suck that the rich don't pay their share? Yes, it does. But if we've got the money from all of the other people, and we can afford to just give everyone healthcare, which we can, by the way. In the US, people pay more for generally terrible insurance, but like any insurance, we pay more for insurance than the English do in taxes per person for the national healthcare system. I actually understand all these terms. Most of them, yeah. I studied anthropology, and English is my first language, so. Free Green Mario, here's the thing. I don't disagree. Yeah. I don't disagree. Um, Libertarian. So, okay, libertarian's kind of a loaded term in U.S. politics, at least. Because traditionally libertarians are weirdly, like, hardcore, about beliefs that just kind of don't make sense. Which is to say, a lot of them are just like, no, I don't want to pay taxes. But they're more than happy to, use roads. They want to have the police on call. They want firefighters to come help their house if it's on fire. So, by and large, libertarians are mad, but they don't have a more like the Unabomber. Yeah, Ted Kaczynski was a whole other thing. And the fact that he was involved in the MK Ultra trials back in the 60s probably didn't help, being dosed with psychedelics day in, day out. But a lot of the pain and suffering that goes on in my country goes on to further line the pockets of billionaires who don't have any appreciation for that money. Like, they are glad that the number is going up, but it literally can't make a difference to them. So, look, I'm physically disabled. I use a cane to get around. I'm not going to be on the front lines of the revolution, but something's got to give. So I'm personally would love to see a little more further shift left. I think the pendulum is going to start swinging back from Trump. But so the wild thing to me, right, is that Trump is somehow the face of all of this, who is like, clearly not a good human being, but also clearly a fucking idiot. The guy bankrupted a casino, which is, like, mathematically impossible. He also is, like, the biggest Nepo baby in the world. And he's also a malignant narcissist. Like, if you go down the traits for a malignant narcissist on, like, Mayo Clinic or whatever other website you get medical information, you've got Trump on your TV now? I'm so sorry. Yeah. It's one of the things I feel very obliged to keep up with world news that goes on. And I hate reading more headlines about Trump, because he's either doing the stupidest thing possible or the most evil thing possible, and on occasion he's doing the stupidest and most evil thing possible. It's never interesting. Like, the news can be disappointing, but it can't be shocking. Like, it's lost that for me. Sound like I would do really good in the stock and Forex markets? I don't know what Forex is. Could I do well in the stock markets? Maybe. I don't tend to have that sort of financial edge. I tend to look at it more geopolitically. Forex trading. Oh, futures trading. Okay. Yeah. I do know that. I just didn't know it by that name. Got it. Forex is trading money. Yeah. I got it. But yes, could I do that potentially? Maybe. That said, I've never met a day trader who was like happy with their life. They seem to go through every day stressed as fuck. And I don't know that I want that, you know? So, my general inclination is to keep up with it, to talk about what's going on in the world, to educate, if nothing else. But financially, I'm not sure that stock trading is up my alley. I just like sleep more than that. Trading and investments create crisis where... Oh, create crisis before they came by preventing the crises that they manufactured. Yeah, you're not wrong. And as usual, the... Oh, you're headed out, Nusrat. Good to have you here. I'm sorry. Oh, now you're out of the market. I gotcha. Sorry, I misread that. Yeah, it's always, the rich folks swooping in to prevent a crisis that they were starting. Making a ton of money, and poor people get even poorer. And if you look at, like, the French Revolution, the wealth disparity is worse in the US today than it was at the time of the French Revolution in the 1770s. So 1770s, 1780s, I guess. It went on for a little while. But something's got to give, and I would really prefer not to be in a hyper-violent state, but I don't see how this gets resolved any other way. The problem, I mean, there are many problems. But in 2010, the Supreme Court passed what was called Citizens United. Yeah, during the revolution, the inequality was less than it is today. Yeah, which is just horrifying. But the Citizens United decision by the Supreme Court basically made it perfectly legal for any company or individual to bribe politicians, and call it campaign contributions. But we got cheap consumerism. Yeah, we sure did. Hooray. Jesus. And so what that means is, like, people are even less empowered and are further disenfranchised. What was I doing when the market crashed in 2008? I was 13. So I didn't have a job at the time. And I actually was better off than a lot of kids whose parents, like, lost jobs. Because I was the son of a nurse and a teacher. So both of their jobs were very stable and weren't going anywhere because of the financial crash. And so while I was never as well off as a lot of my neighbors in, Northern Virginia, I was also never worried about where my next meal was coming from as the economy was collapsing in 2008. So it definitely went better for me than it did for a lot of people. I got lucky there. You were playing Dragon Ball Z on the PS2? Fair enough. It's good to have a hobby. Let's see, what would I have been playing on the PS2 at that time? I didn't own a PS2, but I had a good buddy whose house I went to pretty regularly. It would have been Battlefront 2. Battlefront 2 that came out in 2005, the Galactic Conquest mode we played a ton of. Your uncle's PS2, I gotcha. Got to acknowledge some people really changed their life in 2008 for the better. In the sense that they voted for Obama and that was better, sure. By and large, a lot of people had their homes foreclosed on in 2008, and the banks got bailouts, but those people never did. Oh, you're saying buy the dip as far as like all of those foreclosed houses. Yeah, the people who had money to do that for sure benefited, but the people who already were poor and were then getting kicked out of their house did not have a good time. Short the market. Yeah, Jesus. If mankind can figure out how a thing even kinda works, they can gamble on it. That's always been the funny one to me, right? Like, there are states where gambling is illegal, quote unquote. Why did they get kicked out of their homes? So, what caused the 2008 financial crisis was what were called subprime loans. And effectively, banks were giving loans to people that did not qualify for those loans. And they knew that the people couldn't make the payments on the houses that they were getting loans for. And so what the banks were doing was they were giving out the loans, and then when people defaulted on the loans because they couldn't pay, the banks would simply take the house. And, boot the residents out. And when it all came tumbling down, the U.S. government, instead of the banks were saying, hey, we need bailouts. The banks that, incidentally, a year or two before were going, no, we're too big to fail. Were like, no, we need government bailouts for billions of dollars. And the U.S. government not only gave them those bailouts, but then didn't nationalize the companies. They nationalized, I think, AIG, but none of the other banks were then nationalized, which should absolutely have... Yeah, the bank got like half the price of the house and got the house. So, A, nobody went to prison over that shit, which they should have. And B, the people got kicked out of the house while the bankers got a huge bailout. Besides being fairly morally repugnant, it was just yet another lesson in how the rich do not get punished in this country, regardless of what's going on. And I get that it's kind of that way everywhere, but the U.S. has a really bad rich people worship problem. Instead of going, hey, that guy's taking an unfair share, people in my country look on and go, that could be me one day. Despite the fact that, no, it's not, because that guy's rigging the system so it can never be you. It just frustrates me. And I have an uncle who worked sort of close with the guy who nationalized AIG, and he was apparently a fairly hardcore libertarian, so the idea of even nationalizing the one bank sucked for him. He hated it. But frankly, every bank should have been nationalized. Credit for personal property where we live needs to be from non-benefit bank like national or social systems. Yeah, ideally. Um, it's a big problem that there's no social safety net. Like, because the problem with buying a house, right? Bring back assassinations. I'm not gonna say that I support that because I would prefer not to get banned. Thank you. Uh, that said, historically, I think it's very likely that that's gonna happen. See Luigi Mangione. It didn't work in France. Yeah, that's a fair point too. The Reign of Terror mostly ended with a bunch of people getting their heads chopped off, and then a monarch again. Though there was a brief moment where it was like sort of karmically just that the people who were chopping off heads got their heads chopped off. Max Robespierre, who sort of orchestrated the whole Reign of Terror, did die to a guillotine. Violence is called civil war and not cultural revolution. Yeah, I mean, and that was in the 1960s. We had hippies in our country who were very much about peaceful resistance without resorting to violence for the most part. Uh, and that, I mean, that's to my mind, like a lot of people are talking about like what good is peaceful protest, and my thought is, you know, protest peacefully, resist forcefully. If a bunch of guys claiming to be ICE without badges and with masks on their face come up to grab people, resist forcefully. But until then, protest peacefully. So they don't have an excuse to come in and start shutting you down. Guillotine was terrorism, not resistance? Okay, so here's the problem with terrorism. ICE is terrorism. Yes. I mean, ICE is the Gestapo. We've seen this before. It is just a rehash of the Gestapo. Uh, but as far as the guillotine being terrorism, yes, it got there for sure. Though it should be noted that the inventor of the guillotine, who was in fact killed by guillotine, uh, invented it to be a more like ethical way to carry out the death penalty, so that people wouldn't suffer. So there is at some level a need more Mangianes. Again, not going to agree. Prefer not to get banned, even if I don't think Luigi did anything wrong. Um, but the whole idea of the guillotine was to be more humanitarian. And then, of course, it's a tool. It doesn't matter what it is, it matters how it's used. So, of course, when Max Robespierre and the Marquis de Sade got their hands on it, they used it for a reign of terror. And then, of course, when the tables turned, they got their own heads cut off with it. Respect the sacrifice of Luigi as a privileged kid? Fair enough. Well, at some level, like he was a guy. Like, yeah, sure. Did he have money growing up? Yes, but also he was a guy who got a back injury and apparently was like denied a bunch of treatments that would have helped by United Health. Um, and as someone who lives with chronic pain, I have an ankle injury that's like nerve damage. It's been almost 9 years now. I get it. I'm not gonna sit here and condone it. I'm not gonna say that people should go do it, but I fucking get it. I know how he got there. Now, for me, I stepped in a groundhog hole, so all I planned was a genocide against groundhogs, which I think I'm allowed to say on this platform. I still haven't carried out that genocide against groundhogs. The logistics are a little difficult, but, you know, it's good to have plans. You've got a chronic inflammatory disease that would be very difficult in the US. Yeah, no doubt. All that shit is like, if you have enough money, you can live with it. If you don't, a lot of people can't. And it's one of those things that just makes your quality of life worse, because, like, a bad thing happens to you, right? Like, you have this chronic inflammatory disease, but then a worse thing happens to you in that the U.S. healthcare system gets their hands on your bank account. So now, not only do you have a chronic illness or chronic difficulty, you're also poorer and therefore have fewer resources to handle it, whether it's diet or whatever else, or housing. So it just makes life worse. Yes, I'm right there with you, Nusrat. Fuck groundhogs. Can't get credit. So, broadly, no. That said, there are a couple of exceptions in Medicare and Medicaid, which are social healthcare programs. That said, the current president is doing his best to get rid of them for, again, further tax cuts for the rich. And when I say rich, I don't mean like wealthy. I mean like could never spend all of their money wealthy. Like, billionaires should not exist. That is too much money for an individual. And a lot of my countrymen would absolutely say, like, no, we got to allow billionaires to exist. You can't punish success. But the problem is that the billionaires are using that money to then cheat other people out of potential success. And so, like, anybody who's played a game of Monopoly where one person gets ahead early knows that, like, you can't win from that position. Their king, they killed capitalism for liberal feudalism. Yeah, you're not wrong. And feudalism is probably going to return at some level. I think it's somewhat inevitable, right? Like, as any society evolves, particularly given that it's likely we'll have wars over clean drinking water in the next 50 years. Like, those are starting now, but they'll intensify heavily in the next 30 to 50 years. It is highly likely we see a return of feudalism at some level. So, I don't know. Like, right now, my country needs to get the fascists out of power, and then as soon as that's done, like, try and rebuild and ensure that the president's power is much more severely limited, and probably kick out like half of fucking Congress who is complicit with all of it. So, I have no fucking idea. This is my problem, right? Like, I have ideas, I have thoughts, I have various concepts of a plan. To quote the president of my country, the concept of a plan. But it's not as though I have anything concrete to do besides go vote, which it appears that they tampered with the voting machines at some level in the 2024 election. Now that they're in power, who's to say they will not do the same in 2026? And the moment that people do not have faith in the electoral process, we're all in deep shit. I don't know. I know that one man with a disturbingly large backing is burning my country down around my feet, and I know that it will never hold the same place in the world. He destroyed 100 years of soft power in 2 months. Too many old people to believe in voting? Yeah, could be. We need more whistleblowers? Yeah, we do, but here's the problem, right? We had a lot of them during Trump's first term, but he has very carefully eliminated anybody who is not a loyalist to him specifically, not the office of the president, not the Constitution, but to him specifically. And therefore, we don't have those people stepping up in the same way. We have a lot of federal employees who are being badly abused by the current administration, who are standing up and saying things, but anybody within the circle is not going to step out of it this go round. It's maybe anonymous ones. One hopes, right? Like, you hope that you can get someone with the bravery to anonymously leak stuff. But it requires, one, the guts to believe that it'll stay anonymous, and depending on how many people have access to the information you're leaking, that can easily come back on you. Obviously, they've got people, like, the only valuable thing about this administration is that they're basically all incompetent. They don't know how a government works. They go in and try and run it like a dictatorship. And the U.S. government has so many levels of bureaucracy that you can't really do that. So they keep hitting themselves in the head trying to. But it's definitely the kind of thing where you would need someone with guts to stand up and do it. And it's... I don't blame people for being terrified of that. Now, granted, you got a bunch of money stashed and you can head for a non-extradition country? Sure, do it. Blow that whistle. But I understand why there are a lot of people in positions where they kind of can't. Yeah, I don't know. It's certainly depressing to watch every day. Just watch my country slide further into fascism. I mean, fuck, they just opened a concentration camp in Florida that they're calling Alligator Alcatraz. Personally, I think Alligator Auschwitz would be more appropriate, but... God, it's... I mean, it's the first concentration camp on U.S. soil since the 1940s, which is horrifying in its own right. Like, one had hoped we were done with those. Evidently not. How are the LA protests going? I know a lot of people getting black-bagged by ICE. All the Belgian people you know in the U.S. are back. Can I say that I envy them? If I had the ability to, like, move to Norway right now, 100% I would do that. But they don't want me. I don't have any sufficiently marketable skills, and I'm physically disabled. So I would be a drain on the healthcare system and don't currently make enough money to make it worth them taking me in. But yeah, without flinching, I would go move to Europe right now. The only U.S. state I might stay in, given the opportunity to move, would be Hawaii, and that's if I'm making a lot of money. Because Hawaii's fucking paradise. And is far enough away physically from the mainland U.S. Maybe I'd find Belgium annoying. I hear there's really good waffles and chocolate. I'm also a fan of Sig Sauer pistols, which I know are manufactured in Belgium. And beer. Yeah, I mean, the Germans and the Belgians are known for their beer. The best fries. All right, you're telling an American that. I don't know about that. I would have to, come check. German beer is only cat piss. I see. Okay, okay. Look, I understand that they used your country as a speed bump to get around the Maginot Line in World War II, but no reason to be mean. That said, the more I talk about it, I do want a waffle. Belgium made worse with the Congo? Yeah, no, the 10 million dead was definitely not great. Uh, that was what, King Leopold II? Yeah, ugh. That was a particularly horrific time. Fries are cooked in beef fat, double cooked. Okay, I would absolutely try those. Why are the protests happening in LA? It's not only LA, but LA is a very, very liberal city. That is to say, leftist city. They cut hands off for each bullet used in the Congo. Yeah, no, I know. No, I've studied that one, and it is really fucking horrifying, frankly. To answer Mr. Rott's question regarding the protests happening in LA, LA is a very left-leaning city, and there's a shitload of people in it. So if you wanted to gather a group of relatively like-minded people who opposed the current administration, LA and New York are going to be really good bets just because there are a lot of left-leaning people all gathered close together. That's one of the things that a lot of people don't realize as far as the US is we are so spread out that organizing any kind of meaningful resistance is very difficult. Like if you look at the protests in Serbia for the past year, not even a full year, but I don't know, like 8 months ish, right? I have ADHD for sure. You're goddamn right. But the Serbian protests, you have like a sixth of the population out there protesting Vucic. And that's possible because Serbia is a relatively small country, so you can gather all those like-minded people up. But in the US, there's a phrase I heard one time that I thought was very true, which was, in the United States, 100 years is a long time. In Europe, 100 miles is a long distance. Whereas in Europe, Europe's so old that 100 years means almost nothing. And in the US, we have such great distances between anything that 100 miles means nothing. But yes, I do in fact know the history of Belgium and the Congo. I was an anthropology major, and I knew some of it before that, but I studied it specifically in college. Back in years, Serbian people weren't really left. I mean, that's a That's a complicated issue. Particularly if you want to talk about the treatment of Bosnians and Croats at the hands of the Serbians in the 90s. And I have a Serbian friend who's a nurse that helps with ketamine infusions for my leg. Lovely woman, but she got out in 2000. And she was present for the bombings, the like heavy bombing campaigns in 94 and 97 in Serbia. And that was the thing, right? Like, as soon as the Serbs weren't the ones oppressing, they were the ones being oppressed, because the Balkans are a clusterfuck. Largely thanks to the Soviet Union. But that's a whole longer discussion, where they basically took a bunch of neighbors who hated each other from, like, villages across from each other, and made them intermingle, and they were like, no, you will have peace. But then as soon as the Soviet Union collapsed, obviously it all went to shit. Men were nationalist hooligans. Yeah. That describes a disturbing number of countries in the world. There are a lot of nationalist hooligans in my country. Almost all of them voted for Trump. Sorry, guys, no link. What's point of view about Ritalin? So Ritalin's an amphetamine. I am not innately opposed to it. It does help a lot of people. But it does come with risks of its own. So if you have ADHD and it helps you, go for it. Just, obviously, as long as a doctor's prescribing it, do a dose that works for you. Personally, I self-medicate with caffeine because it has a lot of the same effects as a stimulant. Because caffeine is a stimulant, it has a lot of the same effects as Ritalin, which is also a stimulant, where it kind of relaxes my brain a bit. But it's also not as powerful as Ritalin by a long shot. Personally, caffeine calms you. Yeah, same deal. That was when I worked at the fire department. I would often do shifts from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And I would come home and drink a Mountain Dew first thing in the morning and just fall asleep immediately. And I knew a lot of people who would like drink a Mountain Dew and be wired for hours. They'd be awake, they'd be moving. But it never had that effect on me. And fortunately, I quit drinking Mountain Dew. I'm 7 years off soda at this point. But I could not give up the caffeine. I think ADHD meds are based on personal trauma and previous experience. You used more THC and CBD. So this is a very stupid law. And you have to go back to Nixon as a president in my country. But when Nixon was president, they didn't want anti-war protesters, that is to say people who were protesting the Vietnam War, or black people to vote, because they knew that they would be more likely to lose if that happened. And the stereotype at the time was that hippies were all smoking weed, so they made weed a Schedule 1 drug, that is to say, higher schedule than heroin. Hate Ritalin for their old publicity for housewives and kids? Yes, the 1950s housewife thing was basically run entirely on meth. Of course they couldn't, watch the kids clean the house and, always have dinner ready for the husband when he got home without a little chemical assistance. But yeah, it's USA stole everything from the Nazis. I mean, look, let me see if I can find it real quick. There is a picture of Madison Square Garden in, I want to say 1938. Let me see if I can find it. So, this was 1938 in Manhattan, New York. And Ritalin was there before World War II, so no, but methamphetamines were. It wasn't technically Ritalin yet, but same class of drug. The entire Nazi war machine ran on meth, basically. But as far as the U.S. stealing everything from Germany, this was when we had a Nazi rally in 1938 in Madison Square Garden. The first picture is bad, but if you scroll down to see the second picture, it looks much worse. There was an American Nazi Party prior to the war, and the only thing that kind of killed it off was going to war with Nazi Germany. But we have always had a neo-Nazi problem following the war because we didn't stamp it out effectively enough afterwards. Some friend uses your old Ritalin at school when you stopped it. So that's an interesting one to me, right? They sniffed it, said it was like ketamine. Okay, I can't say what their experience on the drug was like, but I will say ketamine is an anesthetic, it's a sedative. And Ritalin is a stimulant. So chemically they have very different effects, but I can't say what your friend's experience was. Everybody has slightly different experiences with drugs. Personally, I am on such a high dose of ketamine that it just basically knocks me out for a few hours when they're giving it to me because lower doses didn't work. But I also don't hallucinate on ketamine. I am prescribed it for specifically sniffed a lot of Ritalin, maybe too tired to be stimulated. That's not enormously healthy. But yeah, maybe. But yeah, I have ketamine infusions every couple months for my leg, and I basically just sleep through it. Agree, ketamine, you tried ketamine, it was very different. Yeah. I don't trip on ketamine. I don't ever see, like, anything weird. It just knocks me out, but I also have to take such a heavy dose because I probably have a mutated MC1R gene, otherwise known as the redhead gene. That means that anesthetic is just really ineffective on me. I've always had a very high tolerance to basically every drug they've ever put me on. I'm currently on, Lyrica, and when they put me on it, they were like 75 milligrams a day, and I was like, that's gonna go up, and they're like, yeah, it might, but just try it for now. I'm currently on 900 milligrams a day. Same thing with Cymbalta. They were like, try 30 milligrams a day. I was like, that's gonna go up. They were like, sure, but start there. And I'm now on 120 a day. So ketamine is to relax the nerves, sort of reset them every couple of months, just so hobbling around is a little less painful. Lyrica also sort of relaxes the nerves. It's often prescribed for fibromyalgia patients. And then Cymbalta is, like, relaxes the nerves and is like a mood stabilizer. It's a chill the fuck out drug. The only one that qualifies as kind of fun is ketamine, and the hangover after that one kind of sucks. I usually have like a full day after the 3 days of ketamine infusions where I'm just kind of moving slow. You were personally microdosing, but it was for recreational use, not medicinal. That's fair enough. I mean, a lot of people do that. The real risk is people who become addicts and start upping the dose again and again and again and wind up dead. Um, but if you're doing it like once in a while, like I'm not your parents, I'm not going to tell you no. Just a five some years ago, yeah. To give you an idea, they started me on like under 100 milligrams of ketamine during a 4 hour infusion, and I'm now up to 500 milligrams over the course of a 3 hour infusion. Not like Elon. Jesus, that dude is gonna kill himself accidentally, and I'm not gonna be sad about it. Take Vicodin just like house. Yeah, don't do that. That's a pretty nasty one to kick. Opiates are one of those things you really don't want. It's an opiate. It's not unlike OxyContin or I mean, in its purer form, heroin. It's derived from heroin. Have I taken Vicodin? No, I have not. I took tramadol when I was getting like when I first got injured. They were like, "Here's a pain medication," and it didn't do anything for the pain, and I wasn't gonna take opiates for no reason. But fentanyl's a Belgian creation. Oh, good. The Chinese are creating a lot of it at the moment. No, fentanyl's a problem not because fentanyl's dangerous, but because drugs are illegal in a lot of countries. Whereas if we had legal but regulated drugs, like the Netherlands does pretty well, uh, we would a be making tax money off people who wanted to, you know, get drugs. Like they would just buy them and pay the taxes to the government. And also, we would have, like, in the US, we have the FDA. In Europe, I know you have the European Medical Association that reviews drugs before they go into common use. Um, and so you wouldn't have people getting heroin that had been cut with fentanyl that then they hit a hot pocket of it and just die. Tramadol works well. I hope it works well for you. It is a medication that did absolutely nothing to me, so I just stopped taking it because I'm like, I'm not. It's not helping the pain, and I'm not gonna take an opiate just for fun. Yeah, all kinds of medications they tried on me. Saw in a documentary where they were mixing a tranquilizer with fentanyl. Isn't Mountain Dew just soda? So yes, what the Pepsi Corporation sells as Mountain Dew is just a soda. Um, what Mountain Dew refers to is Irish moonshine. Uh, but they took the name Mountain Dew and made a soda out of it. But if you're in certain places in Ireland and someone refers to Mountain Dew, they're not talking about a soda. But by and large, if you hear Mountain Dew, yes, it's a soda. As far as on the documentary, you saw someone mixing a tranquilizer with fentanyl. That's a really good way to die. That's too many depressants going into your body at once, and that is a really good way to shut down your own circulatory or respiratory systems. Lose breath, yeah. You just stop breathing. Do I get sleepy when I drink other brands of soda? Well, I did for a period of time, but I have not had a soda in 7 years, so at this point it's just coffee. Yeah, you do, yeah, because caffeine is a stimulant, but because we have ADHD, it doesn't work on us like it does other people. And so there's a quirk in the neurochemistry of people with ADHD where it actually relaxes us, kind of evens us out. Um, and that's basically the caffeine working on you. So I get the same thing with coffee these days, but I don't drink soda. But yeah, I do occasionally wake up, drink a coffee, and then I'm like, man, I'm tired. This is not what I need this to be doing. I just try and use it to focus me a little bit. But if I'm too tired, I will just fall asleep again. Now, as far as mixing drugs, I was an EMT, and I saw people die from like having barbiturates and alcohol mixed. So why have caffeine if it makes me want to sleep? The reason I do it is because it focuses me. In the same way that any other stimulant, like Ritalin, is used as a drug for people with ADHD because it helps focus. Um, because caffeine is a stimulant, like Ritalin, it also does the same thing. Uh, but it also runs the risk of making you kind of tired. Which to me is worth it. I just have the coffee, and also because I'm a caffeine addict at this point and will get a headache if I don't drink my coffee. In Europe, don't have a fentanyl crisis because people use crack in the big city. Uh, Heroin use is rare, and medics give morphine instead of methadone to people using heroin. Do I use cannabinoids? I do not, because I own guns. And sorry, I was talking about Nixon earlier. Because they made marijuana a Schedule 1 drug, currently at the federal level, it is illegal to both use cannabis and own firearms. Now, this is a very stupid thing that should go away, but because I like my guns and enjoy shooting as a hobby, I have never tried anything cannabis related. Are the odds high that I would get caught? No, they're not. Do I feel a need to test my luck on that? No, I do not. That said, if it ever got federally legalized, sure, I'd try it. The problem is, like, it's quote-unquote legal in a lot of places right now, and what it really is decriminalized, because a lot of states have said, like, the cops in those states can't come after you for using marijuana. But what happens, basically, is that the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration, gonna try and have some coffee? Go for it. the DEA can still come after people for marijuana use uh, at the federal level as a federal crime, which, again, is fucking stupid. But until it gets fixed legally, I just don't care enough to go out of my way to get my hands on it. Gonna see if the coffee makes you feel tired. That's fair. Speaking of coffee, I need to go buy some more. I'm on my last package. It'll last me another month right now, but I should go, be prepared to have more. Yeah, there are a lot of drugs that I would, check out if it wasn't, it's a way of diagnosing yourself, that's fair. There are a lot of drugs that I would check out if they were legal recreationally, but, I don't care enough to put the effort into breaking the law to maybe see what they do. I don't know, I have books. Drugs always struck me as a hobby that I didn't feel a need to get into. Also, it's expensive. Caffeine is at least relatively cheap as addictions go. Helps that I drink my coffee black. Grow is better than legal or black market. Unless you're caught with it in the U.S. I don't disagree. Gonna drink it raw. We call that black in the U.S., but raw is certainly a way to say that. But growing and having guns is creepy. Yeah, fair. And honestly, I'm not in a good place for it anyway. Like, people can grow anywhere because all you need is, UV lights inside a house. But if you're talking about actual, growing in the wild, you want a more arid climate. California is actually a pretty good place to grow. But where I am is not, and also, again, I'm just not worried enough about it to, go out of my way to get some. Again, totally try it if they ever get around to legalizing it, but otherwise I'm good. I also think it's stupid that it's illegal to run a casino without government permission, but I'm not going to try doing that because that seems like a whole thing. Do I do sport shooting? So yes, I shoot rifles and pistols at both indoor and outdoor ranges, and then I shoot shotgun. I actually work at a shotgun range for sporting clays, trap skeet, that kind of thing. I actually just came from working there earlier to come hop on stream. But yeah, I shoot paper, clay, steel. Know a lot of the mechanisms. Yeah, I mean, I've been shooting for 16 years. My grandfather started teaching me. The same grandfather just died, actually. Started teaching me when I was 14. He was a competition pistol shooter for a number of years. But yeah, I'm familiar with a lot of the mechanisms. I'm mostly a pistol guy, but I also enjoy shooting rifles and shotguns. I mean, hell, I'm 5 feet away from a gun safe with like 6 guns in it. I've got a Chinese SKS. I've got an old Russian Mosin Nagant. Think it could be a good tool for self-defense? I definitely do. So does the FBI, actually. They did a study on this back in 2013. Or, no, that was the CDC study I'm thinking of. The FBI did a study back in, like, 94. But they determined that basically if you're going to use anything for self-defense, a gun gives you the best odds of escaping that encounter unharmed. I hope that I never have to use it. I have a concealed carry permit, but don't currently carry. I don't have a holster for it, and I'll get one, but it's fucking expensive. In Europe, people don't have guns for self-defense since World War II, except the people who kept them from World War II. But yes, I take your point. The inherent problem with am I allowed to carry outside? So I'm allowed to carry it on my hip outside at any time, as long as I'm not like near a school or an airport. That's known as open carry. So I could throw it on my hip. In Belgium, self-defense barely exists. Yeah, fair enough. But to concealed carry, that is to say, like, tuck it in my waistband and under my shirt, I need a concealed carry permit, which I have. Which, again, I don't use. I haven't actually gone and gotten the equipment to concealed carry, but I have been meaning to get that permit since I was 21, and that was the same year I got injured, and so finally at 30 years old I went and got it. And like a lot of people talk about like trying to get rid of American guns, but A, they're very ingrained in the culture, and B, there's 400 million of them. So if you try to ban them or get rid of them, the only people that are going to be left with guns are the people who aren't giving them up. So A, you'd be making criminals out of people who aren't, and you'd be arming criminals against an unarmed populace if you did. And, like, if I were, coming to a new place, like, a new strip of land popped out of the Pacific Ocean, and we're founding our own country. And someone made the argument, hey, we shouldn't allow many, if any, guns in, I would understand that. But the number of guns that already exist in the country make it nigh impossible to do anything effective that would not make it worse for the average person living here. Because the only guns you're going to get if you try and ban them and have people turn them in are from the people who have no use or intention to use them. And the people who are going to keep them are the people who want them for defense against others and the criminals who were going to keep them anyway. Because weirdly, people who are willing to do murder are not as worried about, like, having illegal gun charges. But yeah, as far as, like, self-defense in the U.S. is actually pretty well protected. You love guns since your kid for history. Oh, since you were a kid for history, and because I love objects and tools, but would be scared to get one at home. Fair enough. There are a lot of people who like them but don't necessarily want to own them. And I know in Europe there are a lot of like shooting clubs where you can store your gun at the club in a locker that you rent, and can like shoot it and then leave it there rather than bringing it home. Switzerland is a country that sort of fascinates me, right? Because the U.S., you have the right to own a gun due to the Second Amendment to the Constitution, but in Switzerland, you are legally obliged to have a gun in your home because they have compulsory military service, and they were so concerned about invasion that once people left the military, they were issued a rifle to keep in their home. And if you're a pacifist and don't want a weapon in your home, you have to actually file paperwork with the government to say, hey, I don't want this in my house. Please take it away. Which I think is such an interesting sort of flip side of that culture. Yeah, but left the rifle in club, thief can see you leaving the club and getting back home. I mean, potentially. Why are you afraid of a gun in your house? So some people have a fear of their own mental health. Some people are uncomfortable having, like, people who have struggled with suicidal ideation in the past can be concerned about having a gun in their house for that reason. Some people are simply not willing to hurt another person if they come in to their home, which is actually a very good reason not to have a gun. Because if you have a gun and are unwilling to use it, that basically means that if the other guy's willing to use it, he now has access to it. And some people are just uncomfortable with it. Which, I mean, sure, whatever you prefer. Like I said, I keep all mine in a safe in my room. So mine are secure. I'm not worried about anybody getting at them. It's a big damn safe. Not scared by having a gun or drugs. More scared by other. I'm not sure what you mean by other. Or you're more scared of other people having guns? I'm sorry, I'm not 100% clear. Oh, robbery or police. Gotcha. You're scared of other people having guns. I understand. That is pretty reasonable. And that's one of the arguments in the U.S. is basically because there are so many guns, someone coming to rob your house probably has easy enough access to one that it makes sense that if you are going to defend your home by other people going at your house for your gun. Oh, you're concerned of, like, people robbing you of your gun. I understand. That is a concern that some people have. And that's where, again, I have a safe specifically for this purpose. And it's not an unreasonable fear, like, that someone would go for it. It's one of the reasons I don't understand the people who have, like, big gun signs or references to guns on, like, their bumper stickers. You're advertising that you have small, easily portable materials that are worth a lot of money. That's pretty well asking to get robbed or burgled. Still gonna need a gun right under my pillow instead of a safe. I mean, if I wake up and a person is in my room, yeah. But the inherent risk of that when you're, like, rolling around at night or something, like, depending especially on how soundly you sleep, strikes me as not worth it. Because if you reach under there and pull the trigger, even if you don't shoot yourself, you're deaf in one ear at a minimum. And I can get into the safe in, give or take 10 seconds. So if someone's trying to break down the door, I probably have time to get at it. And if I don't, I got a knife in arm's reach. Under the bed, not impossible, but by and large, I feel more comfortable having it in the safe day in, day out. I don't often invite, younger kids over to my home, but it does happen on occasion. And I would much prefer that if they, get out of my control, I would be much more comfortable knowing that my guns are in a safe and they can't get at them. Dog's the best alarm. Yeah, but then I would have to have a dog, and unfortunately I am a cat person, so no dogs for me. Yeah, fair enough. I had way too many dogs try and eat me when I was an EMT because I was like trying to do CPR on their owners and they couldn't tell what was going on. Rolling all over the place like Tom Cruise with a pistol. Yeah, don't forget the cane in my right hand. I'm shooting left-handed because I'm busy hobbling around. Like, don't give me too much credit here. Like in Kingsman. There you go. There's the reference. Okay. That is the reason my home defense weapon is a pistol, though, because I only have one hand free. Like, I own a shotgun, but it wouldn't do me much good, because I can either aim the shotgun or walk. Like, those are my options. Yeah, frankly, to get close enough to do that, I don't think either of us would be having a good time. I'll pass, probably. Trying to one hand slowly falls backwards. Yeah, well, yeah. Yeah, it would be very John Woo, except not nearly as graceful. And probably no doves. If you were in the U.S., you'd have a gun at home. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people do. I'll tell you, I have a lot of like trans and non-binary friends who are looking at the political state of things and are very interested in learning, and I've been doing my best to, educate those who want to learn. For the purpose of self-defense, because it's clear that the government does not have their back right now, and in fact is agitating people against them. So there's a strong incentive at this point for a lot of people to arm themselves. I mean, post 2020, the George Floyd protests, it became clear that the police would not help people that they politically disagreed with, basically. And so there were 7 million new gun owners in the U.S. In 2020, almost all of them on the left side of the political aisle. A doc on a transgender paramilitary militia. Okay, that I gotta find. I'm not finding whatever it is. Oh well. No, there. I don't know of any transgender militias. That said, I am familiar with Operation Blazing Sword. Wouldn't it help if I walked on my leg without a cane like an exercise? So I do that right before ketamine. They make me like walk down the hall and back, which really hurts, but I can do it because I know that I'm about to get the ketamine. So yeah, it just hurts a whole lot. So I do that every couple months, but I can't do it day to day currently. I'm hoping that I get better enough to do it, but we shall see. Let me see if I can find. This is specifically an organization dedicated to training LGBTQ plus people to defend themselves and use firearms safely. So I don't know about a militia, but this is definitely one of the things that I find myself wanting to contribute to. Not monetarily, mind, I'm poor, but I could contribute to the training. Musculinists need to be afraid. I'm sorry. What I'm not sure what the first word is supposed to be. Running out of things to talk about? I mean, not necessarily. I could probably keep going, but I admit that I'm sort of fading here. I have been awake for. Hold on, let me check the time. Let's see. I've been awake for the past. 24 plus 6, 30 and a half hours, give or take. So yes, I will probably be wrapping up soon, not because I'm out of topics to talk about, but because I don't really want to fall asleep on stream. I do very much look forward to continuing this trend. I think specifically Sundays I will try and do sort of a Socratic thing every week, and then stick to gameplay Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'll be hopping back into Stalker tomorrow. Oof. Stream tomorrow, yeah. Yeah, it'll be 5:30 at the usual time. Right, tomorrow's Monday. I'm not losing my mind, I think. Yeah, okay. Yeah, there'll be a stream tomorrow. To be fair, I might be losing my mind, but tomorrow is Monday. For sure. Oh, it's already Monday for you. That's fair, right. That would make sense. Yeah, I guess by the time I start streaming, it'll almost be Tuesday for you. Uh, so is it 3:52 where you are right now? I know what country you're in. I just went with the capital to check the time. Yep. Okay. Cool. Yeah, you should. I don't know. Maybe get some sleep. Might be healthy. Oh, you're in Baghdad. Okay. Cool. Oh, yeah. Definitely feel myself fading a little bit here. Which hour? It's currently 3:52 a.m. You sleep during the day and stay up at night. Right there with you. Wish that I had a more like reasonable sleep schedule, but I do the exact same thing. I learned back when I had a brief period after I got injured where I didn't have school or work, that my natural sleep schedule puts me to sleep at 6 or 7 a.m. and I wake up between like noon and 2 p.m. And that's when I start my day. So I am right there with you. All right. Before I fall asleep on stream, sorry, you think it's what's controversial? Oh, to be a night owl? Yeah. Some people object. Some people can get over it. All right, I really appreciate both of y'all being here today. I'm hoping to do another stream just like this a week from now. Um, I am going to go ahead and stop streaming at this point. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate anybody watching this VOD in the future. Everybody have a good day, night, evening, wherever you are. Stay safe, and goodbye.